drain there. What's up, YouTube? And welcome to Chicken Eye Garage. So in the last video, I went ahead and installed a coolant system on the old 1976 Chevy LUV behind me. It's been 350 swapped, so it's got a 350 engine with a turbo hydromatic 350 behind it. I got a couple of things we need to install. Now with the transmission in it, I have no way of putting it in gear. Today, we're going to be installing a shifter, and I need to drain all that coolant out because I also got a transmission cooler right over here. So this is an old Flexolite transmission cooler that I've had for a very long time. And also, I got me a brand new B&M transmission shifter. Now it's up here in one of my shelves, so let me go get it out the box, show you all that real quick, and then right behind me, we'll move inside that high quality interior and show you what the old noodle is thinking as far as getting that shifter mounted. Now if you didn't catch the last video, this is a radiator from Griffin, 24x16. So if you hadn't seen that video, go ahead and click on that link wherever YouTube puts it, and that'll take you to that video. That way you can see the process I went through to get all this installed. Let me open up that blue box, show you what's inside there, show you the shifter I got, and then we'll move inside the cab and show you what's got to be did. But before I do that, if you're new to the channel, I need to let y'all know something. Periodically throughout the video, give y'all about 3 seconds of what I call mug time. Yes. See what that does right there? Is it kind of gives y'all a little energy. Because sometimes you'll be watching these videos and you start losing interest. You start fading away a little bit. And what that mug does is it kind of zaps you with a little bit of energy, brings you back to life. That way you can continue watching the video. I see the analytics. Once I started hitting y'all with periodic mug time, started going up. I can promise you that. Once you get a glimpse of this, you're going to want to see more. All right, let's go see what's inside that blue box. B&M Racing and Performance Products. There's a part number to the shifter, and I'm just now reading that. Made in China. Well, I can promise you this. When you click on that link, you ain't going to see no Chinese price. I can guarantee you that. So now let me go ahead and open up this Chinese box and see what I bought. Not half bad looking, really. First, bam. Second, drive. It does come with your cable and your brackets as well. Now that you've seen the shifter, let's go inside this nice high quality Chevy LUV interior and see what we got to do to get this thing mounted. So here we are in this 76 Chevy LUV interior. And yes, it does need a lot of work. Now originally in this area was a heater box. I took that out because one, the heater core was bad, and two, I may not even worry about heat and air. So originally this truck was a manual transmission. But there's that 350, and I mean, look at that. Look how high up this part is to the transmission. So let me grab that shifter right there and show you what I got to do. So now I got the Chinese made shifter in my hand. There's your 4 mounting holes to mount this shifter. Now later on when we set this shifter up, we'll dive off into the instructions to see how this works. So if you just look at it as is, this isn't going to work. That just sets too high and the handle is hitting the gauges. So this is the idea I got stored in my noodle. There is a crease right there in the transmission hump of the floor. I want to cut along that, go all the way up as far as I need to, and then come across and basically cut this whole section out, cover it with, I got some 18 gauge steel I've already bought, and just build me a cover, but that's a lot lower to the floor. So that means I got to do a little bit of cutting. So I need to go ahead and get suited up, get the safety gear on, get my grinder and all that sort of stuff. We'll set up the camera and we'll get to cutting on this rusty, crusty floor. With that hump out the way, that's going to work out perfectly. Let me put this in first gear, see what that looks like. Yeah, guys, I think this is gonna work out. I like the way that looks. I think what I'm gonna do this off camera. So I think I'm gonna cut a little bit more straight and then kind of square this up a little bit, bring this back corner a little bit more flat and flush. And then I just need to kind of clean up the edges. But so far everything is looking pretty good and I like what I'm seeing. As for what you're seeing, I hope you enjoy 3 seconds of this. Yes, mug time. Never shut a session of videoing without the mug. All right, I got work to do. Good morning. It is a beautiful day. And look what's nestled up under the tree, the old 66. Let's do a little walk around on this thing. It's looking good out here this morning. It looks good up under this tree here. Can you believe it's December 23rd and just now starting to lose leaves around here? That's how it is in Texas. Oh yeah, that looks good. Might take some photos of that. Just have to move the work van out of the way because that is not as attractive. But it does the job that it needs to do, so I can do what needs to be did. Let's go inside the shop and get to work. All right. Man, there's got to be a better way than a cutoff wheel. Whew. So let me start off by saying this is going to be new territory for me. I have never fabricated anything out of sheet metal, and so to do what I'm about to do, this is a whole new ball game for me. So I'm really going to have to utilize the noodle, and I can promise you this, we're going to have to use both chicken eyes today. So if you're looking at the opening, it's kind of perpendicular throughout here, and it starts tapering in as it gets to this point. Back here, it's 8 inches roughly, and from there to there, it's about 10 inches. All right, what I went ahead and did is cut the ends at an angle. That way, because it kind of tapers like I showed y'all earlier, I kind of got an idea that if I bend this, I can set it on there and hopefully I'll be able to make it work. I don't know. We're trying things as I go. Need to figure out better ways to do this if I'm gonna get into this kind of stuff. Let's see if this is even gonna work. As suspected, I'm gonna have to whittle out piece number 2. But I think I'm calling the audible on how I'm gonna design it, and I think this is gonna work out a whole lot better and be a little easier for me to fabricate. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I think that's what I'm gonna do. It's gonna have to be longer down here, up in the front part. This being at an angle, looks pretty decent. It's gonna be easier to grab, and it still clears the gauges and the bench seat. I'm thinking I'm liking that. All right, let me whittle off piece number 2. This is what I'm thinking. I'm gonna have everything overlap, probably a 1/2 inch, drill holes in the new panel, and spot weld it throughout. And I'll need to go get some seam sealer, and then I can seam seal that off. I was gonna try to butt weld all this, but as many angles and bends and just and contours and just a whole lot going on, it's gonna be very, very complex to do. So I'm thinking this is going to be the better way to do it. Just have the edges overlap the whole opening. Now I need to know how far it is from here to here, and I'm gonna use my cut piece as a guide. So I got some scrap shoestring, lay that across there, and then just, I guess, measure it. Let me get a tape measure, see what I'm doing, and I'm gonna write it on here. That way I know exactly where I need to cut. Now you may not be able to see it, but there's 2 lines on the front and then on the back. The outer line is where the opening stops, and the inner line is where I chicken-eyed it, and I think that's where the curve is starting to curve on the original floor. So what I'm thinking, split the difference between 2 lines and just kind of bend down with the table. This is all I got until I can come up with some better tools. I can tell you what, You better eat your sack lunch when it comes to bending this. All right, before I go any further with bending, I just want to kind of give it a test fit. And so far, I think it's going to be all right. I got body hammers. They're cheap, but they'll shape this metal in. Now, I was trying to make a bend, a nice radius curve with that scrap 1.0 or 1/0 Schedule 40 pipe right there. I bought a couple of scrap pieces when I picked up that 18 gauge steel, but I started getting frustrated. The bends wasn't working the way what I wanted them to. So I had to take 10 before I tossed this GoPro 10 out there in the next door neighbor's backyard. Oh yeah, some good coffee this morning. Now I'm getting a little bit of a late start because me and the old family took some pictures out there by that tree that I showed y'all yesterday. With the tree having all those yellow leaves plus all the leaves on the ground, we snapped some good shots. And speaking of a good shot, yes, mug time with a little creamer on the stash. It's starting to shape nicely right there. It's like if I push it down, it's starting to contour pretty good. But I need it to hold down. It just keeps popping back up and it's never going to shape into place. I went up under the truck, just kind of traced the opening. Wasn't very easy to do with the transmission in the way, but I got her done. This is about how much meat I want on the panel. That screw hole right there, I may kind of just catch the edge of it and follow along there and then clean that up. There it is, it's coming down now. All right, well, I'll go ahead and shut the shop door. I don't need my floor getting wet. So I took a little break and had a little lunch, so I haven't even done anything yet. So let me go ahead and put the gear back on and go ahead and start getting this panel trimmed into place, at least on the passenger side. All right, work to do. I don't know if we need to trim any more on this side. Obviously we're gonna have to do this side for sure, but I don't know if any of these body hammers will help, but guys, the problem is this thing it's bouncing back. It's not rigid enough to shape the metal. That is frustrating for me. I guess I'm gonna have to start running more screws in to hold this in place and shape it in. We're just gonna have to take the scenic route as far as getting this shaped in. It's gonna take a while, a lot longer than it probably should. I'm gonna start working this in. I may have to do some more screwing. But you know what I mean. I may have to drill some more holes and screw them into place and shape this in. Gonna be a busy day today. Guys, trying to manipulate this 18 gauge steel isn't very easy with the limited hammers and tools I got. Yeah, it's taking shape. Not that it's gonna be the prettiest thing in the world. And once I get finished with this, I still gotta work this side in. And I'm gonna let y'all know I'm not gonna film any of that. I'm just gonna get to it, shape it, cut it, screw it, just like I was doing on the passenger side, because the driver's side is going to be a little harder, especially with the pedal and the steering column. There's a little bit of stuff in my way on that side, so it's going to be hard for me to film. You know you're getting old and you had to break out the ibuprofen to work on your truck. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. Obviously, by the time you see this video, Christmas will be past, but I hope you had a wonderful Christmas with your family, your friends, and whoever else you may have spent Christmas with. I hope you had a good time. For me, I'm not going to be out here too long. I wanted to spend a couple hours on the old panel. I'll show you the progress I made on it here in a minute. Before I weld that panel in, once it's all said and done, I thought about going ahead and reading the instructions on the shifter and see what's all involved in mounting it. It might be a little easier to have that panel removable. That way I can route the cable, however all that's going to work, mount the shifter, you know, drill holes, whatever. And then when it's all said and done, the shifter is shifting and doing what it's supposed to do. Then I can take it all apart and officially weld that panel to the floor of the truck, and then we'll be done. And we'll figure out how we're gonna, down the line, we'll figure out what we're gonna do. I may spray some primer on it, see what I got to do, and then when I do that, you'll know it needs to be did. What I'm gonna go ahead and do, since it's Christmas Day, I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all special mug time. Merry Christmas. Special mug time complete. All right, let me show you the panel. Well, this is gonna be pretty strong, I believe. You know, a lot of hitting marks trying to get the metal to go in. Added some more screws to hold it in place. Kind of really pull it in. So I think what I'm gonna do with my Mickey Mouse tools I got over here is I've kind of marked some areas I'll kind of want to see if I can't shape them in a little bit better. And then once I do that, I'll go ahead and start drilling the perimeter holes for spot welding. And then after that, I'm probably going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Like I said, it's Christmas, and I'd like to spend a little bit more time on family. We've already done the gifts and all that stuff. It's going to be, we're going to have dinner. Just spend a little time watching a movie. I don't know what we're going to watch or what we're going to do. Maybe play some games or something, but I want to spend time with them because unfortunately, I got to go to work tomorrow. But somebody's got to pay the mortgage around here. It ain't going to pay itself. I can guarantee you that. All right, hammer time. Well, I'm not the greatest body man in the world, but that's kind of contouring right there. I'm trying to match, there was a contour in the center of the floor that went all the way across the hump and to the other side. And I was trying to match that a little bit, kind of shape it in. Same thing on that side. I noticed the Dremel with a little round sanding disc kind of smoothed in those grooves a little bit. So now I just need to start marking the holes. I don't know how far apart I'm gonna make them, maybe an inch. I'm thinking 1 inch, maybe 1 1/4 inches, somewhere in there. All right, so far so good. I looked it up and it seemed to be spot welding, 18 gauge steel. 1/4 inch seemed to be the right size hole. Some people said 5/16, so I just went with the smaller of the two, and I'm gonna go with that. I got a lot of drilling to do, but like I said earlier, it's Christmas. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up out here in the shop. I can do all this stuff this weekend coming up. So hope y'all had a great Christmas with you and your family, your friends, and whoever you spent time with. Now I'm gonna go in the house and spend a little time with my family. Catch y'all this weekend. Oh yeah, starting to take shape. Good morning, new weekend. The past couple days, I've been working on the old panel here. Got all the perimeter holes drilled out. This panel is taking shape pretty good. With the limited resources I have, I've been making it happen. One thing right here, I've been using the end of this vise here that's kind of rounded. Also got that Schedule 40 pipe. I don't know if y'all can see that in the camera. Let me adjust that to skeet taste. Been using this Schedule 40 pipe as well, a little bending and shaping. Like I said, the end of the vise. And just scrap metal I save. Also, I wanted to do a little practicing on welding because I've never welded sheet metal before. And basically, these two right here, spot welded and then ground them down. And these two have not been ground down. The only thing I did was hit the brush, knock that slag off because this is flux core welding. Not as bad as I thought it would be. Obviously, once I'm done welding, I'll hit it with the flap disc, get all the spot welds as smooth as possible, get the whole panel smooth, and then at that point, then I'll seam seal it, and then prime it, paint it, whatever I'm gonna do at that point. That floor's got a lot of rust, so in the near but not so near, maybe far away future, I may do some rust repair on the old truck. Let's go to the truck, test fit this panel, and just kind of see how it's turning out. Don't look too bad initially. We got some serious gappage right here where this screw is that ain't even really holding it down. Heck, I might be able to replace that screw and pull that up. But that needs to go down and or this part come up, one of the three. Right here is really, really good, but it could be better. There's a little bit of gap right there, so I've kind of marked everything that needs to be worked on. Now this side is a whole lot better. This is really close to the floor. A little bit of gap right there. Not too bad, but a little bit. And once again, like the other side, this is kind of spaced out. This part right here, I mean, that is 98% there. I think that's good enough to weld as is. So now that you've seen the panel screwed in place, let me once again take it back out and see if I can't work those areas in and then screw it back in place. I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of that. Putting it in, screwing it in place, looking at it. This is actually kind of fun, even though it's time consuming and tedious. I'm actually having a lot of fun and I'm kind of learning as I go. I think this panel is officially ready to pull out and start mounting in this new shifter. So let me go ahead and set the shifter on the panel and kind of give you an idea of where I want it to be sitting. So I'm thinking right there is going to be a good spot. It's slightly offset to the left. I think that's going to be good. It brings it a little closer to me. Going to be easy to grab and doing the shifting. Plenty of space in between the bench seat and the actual shifter itself. Obviously, when this is in first gear, that knob is going to be nowhere near the bench, so that's good. Once you pull the covers off, there ain't really much left over. Believe it or not, the old unit bit right past 1/4 inch is 9/32, and that's what the instructions say. Drill 9/32 holes. So that's what I'm about to do. All right, before I make any additional holes, I want to go ahead and lock in that chicken eye. I don't need no rulers, but we'll go ahead and double check the work just in case. Once I make 2 holes, that's pretty much gonna tell me where the front 2 holes need to be. So let me do that. It's a bit of a challenge too, because the panel kind of going like that as it goes to the front. So it's challenging the chicken eye, but we'll get her dialed in. And if I don't, I'll just have to shut my channel down. Well, that old unibit got ahead of me. That thing's at 5/16 now, but a little bit too fast, I guess. Believe it or not, I'm using 5/16 bolts and they went right through the hole. I think temporarily for installation purposes, just use some regular nuts. We'll go ahead and mark the 2 holes, get those drilled. I might just go 5/16. It's going through the factory bracket there. I'll just use my own hardware since I'm just going through sheet metal and then call it good. I think the next step will be setting up the cable. There you go. Got a shifter now. I think this is the way to do it. Have this off first. Get this mounted. Once this is all said and done, then we can officially weld it in place. Now we're ready for the cable. We need to slide these plastic bushings forward, both of them. Then you can slide the cable through that slotted hole right there, making sure the plastic bushings are forward. Get that in place. Then there's a bolt that's provided in the kit. So let me dig that out real quick. There's also an E-clip that holds the end of the cable to the shifter. So let me dig that out real quick, get the correct hardware, and then we'll install it to the shifter. And once you tighten the hardware, go ahead and slide the plastic boots back over. All right, let's take all this to the truck and see what we got to do. There it is in place. And the cable wants to be under the seat. According to the instructions right there, this hole, the furthest hole to the back, you need to make your hole 5 3/4 inches from that hole to the hole that goes in through the floor to route your cable through. And with that being said, I am going to have to remove the seat. That does not look like fun to me. So I sprayed the nuts pretty heavily with some penetrating oil. So I'm gonna let that marinate overnight. Tomorrow, we'll knock those 4 nuts loose. Hopefully they'll break loose really easy. If they don't, yeah, I got the hot wrench for it. I can promise you that they will come off. Good morning. Last night I soaked my nuts in some Get 'em Loose juice. And as y'all can see this morning, they busted right off. So now that the nuts are off, we can officially remove this high quality bench seat. There we go. This cord is all up in the way. Set that aside before I strangle myself. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. A nickel and a penny. Who says you can't make a little money doing YouTube? I would say that's the definition of this interior. You're looking at it. All right, guys, there ain't much to look at back here, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of vacuum all this up. I'm gonna save my 6 cents though. I earned that. That'll hold that in place while we mess with that. It says 2-inch hole. Guys, that's a 2-inch hole saw. Yeah, I don't know what B&M wants me to do there. I don't know why we need a 2-inch hole. That seems a little excessive to me. Now, rooting around in my hardware bins and stuff like that, I found this grommet. As you can see right there, it doesn't seal the cable off, but it fills in that hole quite a bit, and there's a lot of play. I think I'm gonna pull an audible on this, and I'm gonna drill a smaller hole so I can accommodate this grommet. Because it says after that, make a hole in your carpet, like a slit or something, so you can route the cable through. It doesn't even say anything about a grommet. I guess they're saying use your carpet as a grommet, which, okay, that makes no sense. Went ahead and cleaned up the hole with one of those metal rasps. That works out really good for the shards. And that grommet fits pretty dang good. I think I can now officially route that cable through that hole, and then we can go down below and see what's got to be done there. See, I was kind of in a bind there, guys. It's a little pointing down, and it has to, really got to really force it up to kind of get to go through the hole. So far, it's still movable, so maybe it's not that big a deal. The old cable's got its chicken eye on it, so let's go down below and see what we got to do there. Gotta remove this nut and take this bracket off. Then you install a new bracket facing up. What it looks like in the destruction, see how it's kind of bent? I think the bend faces out. Get that like that. You will have to reuse the nut. Don't get stupid with it. Just needs to be snug. Now you got your shifter cable bracket to install. If you're doing a 350, which is what I have, you'll use the slotted hole in the middle hole. If you got a turbo 400, use this hole or in this hole. You will have to remove your bolts here. You will no longer need these bolts. They give you 2 longer ones in the kit. 5/16 by 1 inch is what they give you. And if you're running a stamped steel pan like this, I'm going to be changing this later in the future, but for now, I'm going to run this and give you 2 spacers to accommodate for this flange right here. And just so you're aware, this faces up. That's it. Brackets are installed. All right, before I start hooking up the cable on the brackets and start getting all that set up, I'm gonna go ahead and stop on the shifter install. I actually went a step ahead on it. After you do your hole for the shifter cable, you need to go ahead and install your cover and all that stuff, get that in position, get your knob back on it, basically put everything back together as if it's ready to go. Then you put in your brackets like we just did, and then you connect your cable and get all that adjusted. That way you have park all the way to first and back to park, and everything's working like it should. But I'm not going to do that right now. Basically what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the shifter as it is now, take it off, go ahead and remove the panel, and I need to grind all or clean up all that paint and rust on the perimeter portion of the original floor for where the opening is. Get that down to clean bare metal. I do have some weld through primer. Takes about 10-15 minutes to dry, so I may hit that on the perimeter and on the bottom side of the panel. That way when I weld it, at least that's kind of somewhat protected. We will be putting some seam sealer later on, especially on the outside, and then if I ever remove that transmission in the future, I will be at some point. Then I'll do it on the outside and may even take care of some welding on the bottom end as well. Later date on that. The daylight is a-burning, and so is my desire to give y'all a little bit of mug time. Yes. All right, you've been recharged. Time to get to work. Took me a long break, ate some lunch. Went ahead and sprayed this before I did all that, so this should be dry and ready to do a little welding. Let me screw this back in place. I'm not gonna bore y'all with screwing it in. I'm just gonna get her done. Guys, it is not working out very well. It started out pretty decent, but now it looks like Ray Charles is doing the welding. I don't know. I need to take a break, maybe research, do a little research. Maybe I'm spending too much time on it, not enough time on it. Maybe the wire speed's too slow. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe I just need to stop doing flux and start doing MIG. Yeah, I need to. I know I need to, but there's a chart saying you can do 18 gauge. I should be able to do it. Is it gonna be a little bit splattery? Got the slag and the swag and all that. Well, that's fine, I don't care. Man, some of these spot welds are atrocious. I mean, you know, doing the scrap pieces worked out okay, but now we're transitioning to the actual floor. We're in different positions, angles, curves. I ain't showing you any spot welds right now. Trust me, they're bad. So, a little embarrassing. All right. It's almost 6:35, and my welds still look like crap. Y'all see those welds? You might actually really be laughing. They are bad. Absolutely garbage. I'll show y'all here in a second. I can tell you right now, the biggest problem I'm having is me. I don't know what I'm doing. But then again, I did that practice metal and they turned out halfway decent. And so if those welds that I did on my practice scrap pieces were transitioning to what I'm doing in the truck, I'd be in a much better mood. Throughout this afternoon, I probably said at least 2, maybe 300 cuss words. And the bad ones too, the F's, the MF's, the S's, the C's, the D's, and the E's. I don't even know what an E cuss word would be, but I said it. The other problem is the actual floor metal is thinner than the 18 gauge steel panel that I made. That welder says it can do 18 gauge steel, and I believe it. Because like I said, the scrap piece turned out halfway decent. I'm thinking the floor metal in this truck is at least 20, if not 22 gauge. And so I think that's my second biggest problem. And the third would be, I say this every time I record a video and I start doing welding, I always say, I need to go to MIG, but for now we're gonna flux it up. Well, now I'm doing thin metal and it's really, really bad. Please don't unsubscribe, by the way, when you see these welds. Trust me, they're bad. Oh yeah, get you some of that. Anybody need a welder out there? I'm ready and available. I don't want me welding or anything. Check this out though. This is what's frustrating. Look at that weld. That's not ground down or nothing. That's one shot. That turned out decent. Yeah, I mean, there's that hole for the shifter, and this metal, I can feel it. It's thinner. But since it's about 6:40 now, I'm just gonna go ahead and shut her down for tonight. Kind of just take my mind off of this crap. I mean, this is, like I said, this is disappointing. And for a perfectionist like me that wants something done right, yeah, this is frustrating. So I may do a little research. What I may do, honestly, while I'm thinking about that, The actual opening that I cut out, the piece, I still have it. I may clean the metal, the paint and the rust and all that off of it, and take some of this, these scraps that I cut off when I was making the panel, and start practicing on that. Since that's the same thickness metal that the floor is that I'm welding to, and then that's 18 gauge, maybe I can get a little bit of practice and see what works and what doesn't. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and shut her down for tonight. And I don't know, sometime this week, we'll pick back up on the video. I'll show you the progress I've made and maybe some updated results and my findings of my putting on was nearly junk welds. Happy New Year's, everyone. So today is January 1st, 2025, and I officially got the welder put away. Now you saw the other day how crappy those welds were looking. Well, I started realizing something, that if I spent more time on the metal and got it nice and heated up, that the weld pool was starting to flow out a little bit better and the welds weren't crappy anymore. Now I've upgraded to mediocre welds. I'll take a win as I can get them. It ain't all that great looking. I didn't want to spend, I couldn't spend all day trying to fill in every little porosity hole. It is what it is. So let me show you all the panel, show you how it turned out. Everything's cleaned up in there, so we ready to get back to work and get ready for some shifting. Yep, there's some porosity right there. I could go back over that if I really wanted to. Some turned out really good. Like this one turned out pretty good. Once I ground it down, that one turned out okay. Some other ones. It's done. It's in there. And I can promise you this, it ain't going nowhere. Now that everything's cleaned up, let's put the shifter back on the panel, get the cable routed through the hole, and then we gotta grab the instructions. I believe it said I need to completely assemble the shifter, get the cover on it, the knob and everything, and then we'll connect the cable down below and get it all adjusted, and whatever the instructions tell us to do, we'll get it did. I would like to do it today, but I'm sure they're closed. So tomorrow I'm gonna have to go get some seam sealer. So I'll probably have to take the shifter back out. But to make progress on the video, plus getting everything adjusted, let's go ahead and get everything hooked up, adjusted, make sure we got all the gears, there's no binding or any issues like that. And if there is, we can address them now. And then when I get that seam sealer, I'll apply that stuff, and then that'll be it. And I just gotta figure out what I wanna do do I wanna paint it, prime it, leave it bare? I'm not gonna leave it bare still for sure, especially on the outside, but on the inside, I don't know what I'm gonna do as far as an interior, if I'm gonna do an interior at all. That remains to be seen. But for now, what needs to be seen on January 1st of 2025? Yes, all right. I just hit y'all with y'all's first mug time for the new year of 2025. All right, let's get into some shifting business. All right, shifter's back in place and it's put in park. So let's go down below, start setting up the cable adjustments. Take that jam nut off. Take this one off here, a little black plastic cover, rubber boot. Then you take off one of these jam nuts here and one washer. Then you'll go ahead and slide that through your bracket there. And we'll just put it all back together. We'll leave these jam nuts loose for now. Next we'll go ahead and put the rubber boots on for now. And in the kit you'll get one of these. You'll thread it on there. And I believe you put your jam nut on there after that. Alright. And then that'll connect to your deal there. We'll go ahead and put that jam nut in place for now. We'll just leave it loose. The last thing we'll have to install once this is all said and done is the cotter pin. Well, we don't need to do any cotter pinning right now because we got a cable to adjust. They say to mount this kind of centered on the threads, this pin right here. You'll want to move your shifter in the truck or vehicle, if you're whatever you're working on, to drive, and then select the selector, move it to drive as well. Right now it's in park, which is all the way back, and I confirmed that with the yoke in place. Does not rotate. So we'll go forward 3, reverse, neutral, drive. And it says, even though there's 3 holes, it says you're only supposed to use the hole on the bracket, which is stamped F. So this one on the back that I'm touching is F, C, and R. Don't know what the other two are for, but I'm just doing what the instructions tell me. Adjust the back there a little bit. They say it should just slide in and out with no effort. Looks like that's good there. Let me go get a wrench, tighten these two nuts up real quick, and then I'll start moving the shifter and see what happens. So that should be park. It is. Go ahead and put it back in drive. Matter of fact, I might just go into first gear. Yep, first gear. Drive shaft is rotating. So let me just jam through all the gears all the way back to park. Back in park. Well, I guess now we'd officially be done. Go ahead and tighten that jam nut. The one thing I need to do is secure the cable. Now look at this bolt right here. So I could probably just find me a clamp. Maybe something like that. Because you got to think that's where the drive shaft's going to be. So I don't want that coming in contact with that. One thing I noticed when I was up here shifting on it, I don't know if that flexes. I don't know if I should worry about that or kind of mess with that. I mean, kind of just shakes the shifter every time I put it in the gear. Yeah, it's shaking there, watch. Or I got some 1/8 inch thick steel. Maybe use that as, instead of using washers on the bottom, maybe just make a plate, mount that on the bottom, and then run my bolts and my nuts through that, clamp it all down, and that may stiffen this up a little bit. But other than that, that's pretty much done. I will have to take this all back apart to do the seam sealing, but we'll pick back up on that on another day. I need to go ahead and wrap it up out here in the shop, because unfortunately tomorrow I'm not off. I got to go back to work. But after work, I think either tomorrow or Friday, we'll pick up that seam sealer and we'll get that applied one of those 2 evenings. And once that's all said and done, we'll let that dry up and marinate. And then when that is done, we'll pick back up on the video this weekend. I'll have the shifter already put back together, and I can officially pull that radiator out, get the transmission cooler mounted. I will need to pick up some transmission cooler hose. That way I can connect the cooler to the transmission. That way it can receive fluid and let it circulate through that cooler. Let me go ahead and clean up out here, and I'm gonna circulate my butt to the house. All right, I will catch y'all this weekend. Another new weekend, guys. I got the seam sealer in black. I don't really know if it matters what color, because they're all paintable. Never heard of this brand, SEM, but it is an American made product. I went to English Color the other day to pick it up, and before I walked in there, I said, I bet I spent $30 on this tube. And sure as poop stinks, it was like $29.80-something. I say, there you go. So let me take this $30 tube of seam sealer. I got my caulk gun over here. We'll go to the truck. I've already removed the shifter. Once it's all said and done with the seam sealer, I got some black paint over here. I'm just gonna kind of fog that over with some black paint. That way the bare steel don't flash rust. And it'll keep it protected until I decide what I'm gonna do as far as interior. So let me grab that tube. I'll pierce it, cut the tip, and we'll get inside the cab and get a little seam sealing going. All right. Yeah, this is a sticky mess. Once it starts curing, it really rubberizes and turns tacky. So make sure you wear gloves when you start cleaning your stuff up. crappy clothes, whatever you got to do. I hope Derek from Vice Grip ain't watching because I'm wearing one of his t-shirts right now. Yeah, I got a little carried away with the seam sealer, but I wanted to make sure that seam was nice and sealed off. Plus all those spot welds with a little bit of porosity here and there. I wanted to make sure that absolutely no water, moisture, or anything got in between the panel here. So I think I did all right as far as that goes. And then we get to the second part of this video, which would be installing the transmission cooler. So that means I'm gonna go ahead and pull that radiator out. I already bought some transmission cooler hose, and my hose is hanging out right there. It was really coiled up. Last night I hung it down, kind of stuck it in the old stake pocket there of the truck, and it looks like it's straightened out quite a bit. So that's gonna be very helpful. Unfortunately, I had to get this at AutoZone because O'Reilly's does not carry 3/8 transmission cooler hose. And of course, I got the good stuff here. I don't like buying made in China stuff, but what do? That's the way it is nowadays. And I tell you what, at $3 a foot, that should have been made here. But if it would have been made here, it'd have been $7 a foot. Stuff is expensive nowadays, I can tell you that. Hurts every time I go buy something. $30 tube of seam sealer, $30 of hose right there, $60. $60. All right, let me go ahead and paint that panel, then we'll pull that radiator off. All right, let's move this to the workbench. So before I remove this radiator, I kind of marked with a Marks-a-Lot where I want the cooler at, and I want it kind of higher up on the radiator because this is where the grill will be. And I think that's going to be the maximum amount of airflow through this along with the radiator as well. I'm not going to do it sandwich to sandwich there. What I thought about doing is using these rubber mounts or little rubber isolator pads here, and then it'll set like that. Give it about, I don't know what that would be in thickness. What is that, 3/8 of an inch maybe? Where's my tape measure? That might be 7/16 thick. So I think that'll work good as far as spacing this away from the radiator. Another thing I'm going to do is I got some rubber washers. I already had these, and then just like a smaller size fender washer there. It's going to hold that in place, but keep it off the aluminum as far as the washer goes. Shouldn't pull through, should be good to go. All right, here comes the cringy part, pushing it through the radiator. Ooh. Oof. I'd say about a ½ inch sticking out the other side. We might be all right after all. All right, it's all the way through. Let's flip it over. Now when you get those electric fan mounting kits, like I'm using here, they do give you these foam pads as well. But as thick as this is, and counting for that, I'm afraid that's gonna be really close to hitting the fan, and I don't want any possibilities of interference issues. So what I could do is run a rubber washer like this, be nice and thin, and keeping it away from that fan for sure, and then I can trim what I need to trim. But unfortunately, I only got 2 of these. Now I could run to the parts store and get 2 more, or I could just trim out a circled washer out of a roll of rubber that I have. So I think I'm gonna do that because 1, I can do it now. I don't have to stop what I'm doing, go run to the store and get it. And 2, it'll just save me a few bucks on that. So here's that roll of rubber I was talking about. I think this is 1/16 of an inch thick, but I found this scrap piece and it looks like all these will fit. You get my scissors wherever I got those. Okay, it's not the prettiest circle, but it'll do what it needs to do. Let me go ahead and trim the rest of these out, and then we'll go from there. They're trimmed out, and they're ugly, just like the rest of the truck. I've had luck with just using a drill bit to kind of drill the hole in. you can kind of see the daylight through it. Let me flip the radiator back over. And all you got to do, you just kind of like a nut and a bolt, you just tighten them up. Just kind of screw them down, it really tightens it up. I want to leave a little bit of meat there in case I need to remove them. That's it, guys. Let me do the last two. Alright, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's functional. So let me take that radiator to the truck, get it mounted, and see how everything clears. Well, unfortunately, now with the transmission cooler mounted, I cannot install the radiator from the top, which might be a problem in the future. But for now, mounting it through the bottom ain't that big a deal. It ain't much daylight in between the fan and those plastic mounts, but it's enough. It is enough. Not the prettiest looking thing in the world, but it's functional and it's gonna work. And now you can see why I mounted the transmission cooler a little on the higher side, because it's gonna get all that air through the grill. Plenty of space in between the radiator and the transmission cooler itself. I can almost get my finger in there. Should make it a little easier getting the hoses to be pulled away from there. As far as where I route the hoses, I'm either going to route them through here or through here. I haven't decided yet. But before I officially start doing all that, I need to take this radiator back apart, because when I did all that cutting and grinding and whatever I needed to do to get this radiator mounted, there's a lot of bare steel and there's some sharp edges here and there that I just need to clean up and work through. And then once all that's done, I need to paint this. That way when I officially put the radiator back in place and start hooking up the hoses, I don't have to remove this anymore. Well, that escalated quickly, but I needed to remove the headlight bezels and that spoiler filler plate, whatever that thing is, plus the bumper brackets, so I could really access some of those cut sections, because I just really couldn't get into it with the tools that I got. I did notice when I started pulling the panel off and the bezels that this thing's had a little Gondo repair. And as you can see on the inside, you can see the Gondo oozing through those drilled holes. So you know that was a quality repair. I'm gonna go ahead and keep working this in. I got some more edges to clean up. Get all this crusty rust off of here. I guess I'll go ahead and fog this down with some black paint. Yeah. I was about 3 steps away from having this truck disassembled. Yeah, it escalated even further. Now, since the last clip, it's been about a week, because I would remove this to access this, and then I would remove that. The next thing you know, half of the front of the truck is removed. I even got the sway bar off. Radiator support bushings, they're gone. Now, I did say I was gonna fog it black, but I started looking at it and I started thinking, I kind of want to go back blue. 1, blue's a good color, and 2, why not? And I found a paint, I believe, that is about as close to the body color of this truck as you're gonna find. So let me pull y'all away from this. It's trimmed, it's dialed in today. So let me give y'all 3 seconds of it. Yes. Truck. But from that original color blue to that rattle can blue, I would say that is a very, very close match. And that old paint laid down really good, if I do say so myself. Now, inside the headlight bucket areas kind of had that scaly rust. The passenger side was really bad. It's got some bad spots in it that need to be repaired, if I even repair any of this stuff. Now, what you want to do with that rusty metal is hit it with that rust fix. Want to knock that chunks loose, knock the dust off of it, just kind of get that metal somewhat clean. Spray this on there, and on the back of the can it says wait about 24 hours before you apply your top coat. But it will turn black once it's fully cured. And there is the paint that I used. Satin Lagoon Blue. And this Krylon Primer Plus paint, I highly recommend. I've used the black and I've used the white quite often on various things that I've painted in the past, and I love this paint. You can paint this in any direction, upside down, inside out. and it's gonna lay down and spray consistently. But now what I'm gonna be doing is removing all that masking tape, and I'm gonna paint that front section of the frame. Basically from that bump stop right there where it's welded, this whole front section right here. Now if you've been subscribed for a while, you've probably seen me set this truck up with that 350. Before I did all that, I painted the inside of the frame before I dropped the motor in there. And I painted it with the old POR 15. Now months and months ago, I bought this 6-pack of black paint. This is gloss black, because that's the paint I used to paint the inside of the frame when I set up the motor. Now there is a process to it. There is a 3-step process. You need to degrease or clean the metal. Then you need to etch it. And once all that's said and done and marinated in, then you can officially paint it. It's been about a week since I've done all this, so I've kind of had to catch y'all up, do a little bit of rambling, do a little mug showing. But now that that's all been said and done, I got some work to do today. So let me get to it. I thought I'd film this real quick, just kind of go through it. But what you want to do, just like the rust fix, kind of knock the scale off. You don't need to remove all the rust. But I will say this with the POR 15, especially when I did it the first time. The smoother you get the metal, the better it looks when it's painted. The more textured you leave the metal, rusty looking, the paint's gonna look textured. So it's just kind of personal preference. So if you want to kind of get that metal smooth a little bit, spend a little bit more time on it. If you don't care, then you just clean it, etch it, and then paint it. Now this is the degreaser they recommend, and I would highly recommend buying their stuff since it is their paint. Get you a spray bottle, you buy one or find a used one you got, and you want to dilute it. If you got some heavy duty cleaning you need to do 4 to 1. If it's just regular cleaning, then you could do a 10 to 1 dilution. It says use hot water, but this has been put together for some time, so I'm not really gonna dump it out and put hot water in it. It's just kind of pointless. Now the first time I did this, I sprayed it with the degreaser and I pressure washed it when I had the engine out. I'm not doing that this time. This metal is pretty clean already, but I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it down. I actually got ahead of myself and I started doing it before thinking about filming. It happens. I can tell you right now, this stuff is strong. Yep. Just wipe the metal down or spray it and then power wash it. But once you get done degreasing it, you need to clean this off, what they said, water. So let me wipe this down real quick and then we'll go from there. Yeah, that stuff will clean some stuff off, I can promise you that. So the metal prep's a little bit different. You can spray it on, use a roller, or you can brush it on. I'm gonna do a little of two. I'm gonna spray it on. I got a brand new spray bottle. First thing it says is to apply this at a minimum of 70 degrees. Apply with brush, roller spray, or dip rusty metal directly into the solution. I can't do that, so we're gonna have to spray it or brush it. If you can get a crappy brush that's kind of clean, use that. I wouldn't go buy a brand new high quality brush to apply this. Now the paint, that's a different story. We'll get into that later. Now when you start applying this stuff, you gotta keep the metal wet for a minimum of 30 minutes. And then once that's done, it says if there's any bubbles appear, you gotta smooth them out with a sponge or a brush or even a cloth. Heavily rusted surfaces will require more time. Inspect parts every 30 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is just lightly spray this. You do not wanna get this on anything painted. So that's why I've rebagged the motor. That way if I spray and it gets on the pulleys or whatever, it ain't melting off my paint. And I will say this, I learned from experience at the other house. You get this on your concrete floor, yeah, you will etch the concrete. I can pretty near almost guarantee you that. So I got cardboard under this because this floor has been epoxied. I didn't do it, it's already done, and I don't want to ruin it. You see what you got to do. Let me go ahead and get all this applied, Let's start doing what we got to do. We got to keep this wet for 30 minutes minimum. Oh yeah. So it's about 25 minutes, and I just saturated it one more time, and I'm gonna let that air dry. What I think I'm gonna do, I need to make an errand, a little run. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into 66. We finally got some sunshine after about a week, so I'm gonna enjoy a little bit of that, cruise the truck, 'cause I hadn't drove it in a couple weeks. That should be completely dry and ready to paint, and I'll show you what it looks like, all the white chalkiness, and then we'll set up and get ready to do some painting. All right. All right, I'm back. It's been about an hour and a half, somewhere in there, and that metal's dry to touch, and you can see that chalky white stuff I was talking about. Apparently that means the metal is etched and ready for a little paint. I already got my crappy clothes on. We'll glove back up, and I will be wearing a respirator because that paint is strong. Last time I did it was at the old house, and I had the door fully open and it was still getting to me. I had to stop and put the respirator on. So when we get to that point, I'll be respirated up. That means I'll have a beard crease later on this afternoon. I got to protect what's inside. That way you can continue to see this on the outside. All right. All right, guys, you see it. That's what it looks like going on. One coat done. Looks pretty good. I think I got all the nooks and crannies hit with a little black paint. So now what I'm about to do is go outside and get a little fresh air. Because now that I got my respirator off, ooh, done ruined my beard. I'll go out here. All these leaves are wanting to go in my shop. I had the same problem at my old place. When the leaves would fall down, they'd go right into the garage when I had the door open. Always something, ain't it? It's 10 minutes to 9 o'clock at night, and I'm about to apply the second coat. I've been waiting for this process to get to this point, and it's been a long process, because I think I did the first coat around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Believe it or not, this POR 15 loves humidity. The more humid the environment is, the faster it's going to dry. It's winter time. We just had a cold front come through the day, so the air is dry as it can be. Very, very dry air, so it took a whole lot longer. POR 15, they require a minimum of 2 coats, and you can apply your additional coats 1 or 2 different ways. You can allow it to fully dry, but you'll have to go back with 320 grit sandpaper, sand it down, and then you can apply your second coat. Or you can do what I was trying to do and wait for that opportune time to apply your second coat. And there's right there at that key moment that I've been waiting for. So let me show you what I'm talking about. And that way you can hear and see what I mean. All right, we're gonna use this finger right here. There's a little bit of black there for me checking this earlier. So ignore that. But you hear that right there? That's tacky sounding. Kind of streaks. Nothing really showing up on the glove. And the top part of this frame was the last thing I painted. I'm not filming any of this. I'm just gonna do it. So I need to put my other glove on, get respiratored up. Guys, I'm tired. I'm ready to go to bed, but I need to get this done. That way when I come out here in the morning, it's officially dry and we can move on to putting everything back together so I can finish this video. All right, you've seen the tired mug. Let me do my painting and I'll see y'all in the morning. Oh yeah, very good coffee this morning. I'm getting caffeined up because it's gonna be a busy day. The frame is officially dry. I can now start reassembly. Let me give y'all a real quick showing of the paint and then we'll start doing what we need to do today. That turned out pretty good. There's some brush streaks in it here and there, like right there. And turned out as nice as I hoped it would. But that looks really good, I think. And for what it is, the frame and all that stuff, once you start putting things on, you're really not going to see it much. So now I can officially pick back up on the video and finish what I started. Now there's one other thing I did throughout the week that I'm about to show you. I made a little gauge panel. This will now go in the place of the radio. Since I don't plan on running a radio, don't care about that, I decided to put the gauges there instead of having that panel right below the dash. It did clear the shifter, but I don't know, I just didn't like the way it looked, and now I have a lot more clearance to grab the shifter, not worry about hitting the gauges. So now I need to put the gauges in the new panel. It's already got the holes drilled for it. Everything's ready to go. Should be plug and play at that point. And then after that, we'll put the radiator in it. We got to put the shifter back together, connect all that stuff. Then we can officially grab my hose that are hanging out right there and start getting that fitted and connecting the transmission cooler to the transmission. Guys, I totally forgot I made these. Now basically this is 1.5 inches wide, 1/8 inch thick steel. And what I did was go ahead and drill some holes that are crooked. I didn't use the chicken eye, so that's what happens. Actually, I did. Somehow, some way, the drill bit walked on me. My eye ain't that bad. But they crooked, but that don't matter. Tap these holes. What I'm thinking this is hopefully gonna do is kind of take away that little bit of wiggle the shifter had when I was going from the different gears. I don't know if this is going to help. This may have been a complete waste of time, or it may solve the problem. What I could do is use a jam nut to hold that. That way it doesn't back out. The only problem is, how am I going to hold that up while I thread it? I didn't come with a third hand. What I think I'm going to do though is tape it up there, try to get it started. Once it starts, I don't have to worry about the tape anymore. I can just peel it off. So let me try to figure all that out, and then we'll start getting that shifter mounted. Yeah, I wasn't lying when I said this thing has a leak. That's a serious leak for a truck that doesn't even move. What do y'all think about the new gauge location? I think that turned out pretty good. A lot of clearance in between that and the shifter. It's gonna be really nice to grab that now. Let's move to the front and get that radiator mounted. I already put the mechanical fan on. I didn't want to get the radiator on and forget that thing, because you can't put it on once the radiator's in place, which is kind of stinky. I may have to pull that back off. I got ahead of myself. I need to put, these ain't the radiator support mounts. These are some mounts I had. I think these are either sway bar isolator bushings, obviously for a bigger sway bar, or shock mounts. It came with 4 of these as well, these kind of concave washers, and then 4 of these. So I'm thinking it's either a shock, or I don't know. But today, it's going on this truck. It's gonna be what I call a radiator support mount. Now I got some thick metal washers that I had to paint because they were bare steel. I got them cooking over there in the oven, i.e. a space heater. They should be dry. I felt them earlier and they were dry to touch. All right, I've assessed it with the old chicken eye. Let me get to work. Well, I guess that rubber is a little older than I thought it was. It started cracking on the ends there. I've had it for a long time. Same thing as well. Yeah, overall, it looks pretty good. You know what else looks good? Yes. All right, went down below and removed my transmission cooler looping system. We'll basically remove the fittings. They're -6 barbed fittings. They're push lock. You push that hose on there, you ain't getting it removed. So I guess what I'm gonna do is kind of rough measure what I think I'm gonna need from the transmission to the actual cooler itself, and I'll connect them to here, and then I'll go ahead and run them back onto the transmission, and then start routing the hoses up to the cooler. All right. All right, let's start routing this thing to the transmission cooler itself. All right, now we're ready to do some trimming. I'll show y'all here in a minute how I routed it. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with some compressed air and just kind of make sure there ain't nothing inside there. blow that out real quick, then I'll connect the hose. Let me get some hose clamps and clamp that down. I thought it was gonna fit a little tighter than that. No big deal. And then I'll grab the camera, go down below, and I'll kind of show you how I routed it. I changed it quite substantially. What I did was run a couple of zip ties, got a clamp, and I clamped it to the starter. Kind of smacked that with a hammer to kind of flatten it out. It's nice and secure, but still got movability, so if it, you know, flexes around or whatever it needs to do, it can. Now this right here, this area is temporary. There is a cross member bar that bolts in. It goes from here to here. And when I originally bought this truck, I dropped the oil pan on the Isuzu motor, and I had to remove this bar to get the oil pan off, and I never put it back on. That's why this is kind of just like this. This is temporary. And then we're just going back up over the motor mount. Yeah, just kind of going across the top there. Looks like it's out of the way of pretty much everything. And then coming out front into the transmission cooler. In theory, we could fill this thing up with coolant now, top off the 14 quarts I lost out of the transmission, and start this thing up and put it in gear and see if that old drive shaft yoke starts spinning in reverse and drive and all that stuff. I'm gonna do a little off-camera action, but I will see y'all very, very shortly. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since that last clip I recorded. But as you can see, I've done quite a bit off camera in those past couple of weeks. Headlight bezels are cleaned up and painted. Grill, same situation. I do need to clean up and paint the bow tie. I got to figure that out because the actual thing's plastic, but it's chrome, and I believe the center, from what I can tell, was yellow. So I may try to figure out what I'm going to do there. I'll deal with that another day. Same thing with the bumper. I got to figure out what I want to do there because the passenger side of the bumper, she's a little dinged up and whopped up, so I got to figure all that out at another date. Believe it or not, I tested my headlights and all 4 bulbs are good. I did have some wiring issues at the connectors. Looked like they'd been chewed up by some rats or maybe some mice or whatever. Corrected all that, so at least at that part should be good. It's filled back up with coolant. I just need to pour a little gas off in my fuel cell, i.e. a empty coolant jug. Put the battery on it. We can officially fire this thing up, go through the gears, and see if that old drive shaft yoke does a little spinning. It's kind of boring to watch a drive shaft yoke spin, so I thought we might do. Oh yeah, guys, it's gonna be party time with this deal. There's my transmission yoke. This is a Strange Made in USA unit, 1310, so it's basically a stock style, I guess. Brand new U-joints on both ends. Cut down, balanced, painted black. I don't even have to mess with that. Now you might be asking yourself, can a stock Chevy Love rear end hold up to stock 350 horsepower? I don't know. I think it will. We got 14-inch 185 70/15 tires, 1 wheel peel. This is a stock 350, what, 250 horsepower at max? I think the rear end will be all right. You start putting sticky tires on it and making some high horsepower, you might run into a bigger issue. But for now, this gets this truck one step closer to being roadworthy again. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this drive shaft. I'll show it once it's installed, show you how it looks. Then we'll get this truck fired back up. I'll have to jack up the rear because I have no way of stopping this truck. If I had brakes, yeah, we might go sneak around the block or something, but I don't have brakes. Have to deal with that in another video. All right, you've seen my shaft, you've seen my mug, you've seen the truck. I got a lot of work to do today, but it's gonna be a fun day, all right? Drive shaft is installed, and there is my stick out. I don't know if that's too much, but I think for what it is for now, it'll be just fine. Shifter cable is secured. Doesn't look like it's gonna hit the drive shaft any. Drive shaft is in place. Those are 5/16 bolts. That's all I got for now. Right now, the transmission is in neutral. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it in neutral when I start it up and run it. That way it's easier for me to click it in reverse, let it do its thing there. We'll watch the wheels spin. Then I can put it back in neutral, let it coast to a stop. Then when it's at stop, then I can click it and drive and see if the wheels go the other direction. Probably not gonna worry about first or second gear, just gonna deal with drive, reverse, starting it, and returning it in neutral. So what that means I need to do is go ahead and set it back on the ground, jack up the front a little bit. I need to run it, get the air out of the coolant system. Once all that's said and done, I'll verify the transmission fluid is full, because it's probably going to lose some because of the cooler hoses on that. Check for leaks and all that stuff, whatever I got to deal with there. Once that's all said and done, I'll fire the camera back up, and what I'm thinking, I'll go ahead and take the 66. I'm gonna move it outside. That way we can get a side shot of the old Love while we watch the wheels spin. The wheels on the Love go round and round, round and round, around and round. All right, guys, enough singing. I'm gonna get to work. Put that thing reverse. That was a heck of a delay before it went into gear. Ugh. Let me go ahead and try drive. Where is that coming from, man? I don't know if that's the torque converter seal, transmission pan, or all of the above. But that is one serious leak. And with a leak like that, there's absolutely no way I can drive this truck until that's corrected. I really do hope that it is just the transmission pan leaking like that, because that thing is bad anyways, and I want to get one of those fancy aluminum ones with the fins. They got a lot thicker bolt rail. So it's a nice machine surface. Made it up against that transmission, should seal off real nicely. But if it's the torque converter seal, that means I have to pull the engine just to access it, because there's not enough room just to unbolt the transmission and drop it. I have to pull the engine, so that's what's involved. Really not too bad in this truck, but it's got to be pulled one way or the other. I do like the way that shifter turned out, guys. I wish the rest of the interior would match it, but we'll have to work on that in the future. I do like that new gauge location as well. And if you hadn't caught that last video, that is a Grant steering wheel, and it's Grant does make a steering wheel installation kit for Chevy Love, so it's like a 15-minute video. So if y'all want to check it out, that's just more mug time for y'all. Guys, I'm starting to get really excited. We are getting closer and closer to getting this truck back on the road, and I can't wait to put it in gear for real and actually drive this thing for the first time. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Probably a lengthy one, but I just kind of wanted to cover everything I wanted to cover. And obviously I got into things that I didn't expect to do, but that's how it is with me. I just started doing things, and the next thing you know, half the truck's restored. All right, like I always say, until then, thanks for watching. It's getting close, and I'm starting to get excited.